Collier and her husband, and I understand this is speculation. I'm asking a question out loud. But did they promise Caitlin Clark was going to play in this league to a lot of investors and to TNT Sports and then didn't deliver? Was that part of this? I can't help because I can't figure out, outside of the league being a virtue.
The question hangs in the air, thick with the acrid scent of a burning investment. Did Napheesa Collier and Breanna Stewart, alongside their partners implicitly or explicitly, promise investors and media giants like TNT Sports that Caitlin Clark would be the crown jewel of their unrivaled league? This isn't a minor query about a business hiccup. It is the central, radioactive mystery at the core of a spectacular, real-time collapse, a collapse that has left a trail of bewildered investors, a skeptical sports media landscape, and the very concept of a domestic women's professional off-season league teetering on the brink of oblivion. To understand the scale of this failure, we must dissect the anatomy of its promise, the stark reality of its execution, and the chilling numbers that now scream from every spreadsheet and ratings report. This is a story about what happens when narrative eclipses substance, when leverage is built on sand, and when the most important player in the room never shows up. The premise of Unrivaled, co-founded by WNBA stars Napheesa Collier and Breanna Stewart, was compelling on a surface level. For decades, the economic reality for even elite WNBA players has involved a grueling annual pilgrimage. After the WNBA season concludes, stars pack their bags for Turkey, Russia, China, or elsewhere.
Alyssa Thomas just come right in and said, no, we ain't got no problems going overseas playing ball. As soon as Project B showed up and started paying real money, boy, they decided to pack their bags real fast and head overseas. Now, make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you're still subscribed. YouTube. Thank you, guys.
Trading home and family for often lucrative overseas contracts that dwarf their domestic salaries. The narrative Stewart and Collier sold was one of player empowerment and convenience. What if there was a high-quality, well-compensated 3-on-3 league right here in the United States? A league where players could stay home, build their brands domestically, avoid the physical and mental toll of constant travel, and still earn significant off-season income. This narrative was the bedrock of their pitch to investors. It was a story of solving a real problem, of capturing a market inefficiency, of keeping American basketball talent on American soil. The vehicle was 3-on-3 basketball, a faster, more open, highlight-friendly version of the game that had gained Olympic status. The timing, they argued, was ripe. Women's basketball was on the cusp of a new era. And then, Caitlin Clark happened. The University of Iowa phenom didn't just break records. She shattered the very ceiling of visibility for women's college basketball. She became a cultural tsunami, drawing millions of viewers, selling out arenas nationwide, and transcending sports talk to enter the mainstream conversation. For anyone with money looking at women's sports, Clark wasn't just a player.
Its second season, viewership has fell off a cliff. We knew it was going to be bad. I got to admit, didn't know it was going to be this bad. I mean, they have actually exceeded my bad expectations, which is, I couldn't have been much lower. I mean, on the farm animal totem pole of expectations, I was somewhere down around pond scum. All right? And well, it's worse. What's lower than...
She was a proof of concept. She was living, breathing, deep shooting evidence that a single athlete could move the needle on a historic scale. So, when Collier, Stewart, and their business team went to secure funding, reportedly tens of millions from a who's who of high-profile athletes and celebrities, and when they negotiated a landmark 6-year media rights deal with TNT Sports, the ghost at the banquet, the unspoken golden ticket, was the potential participation of Caitlin Clark. The question from investors and media executives would have been inevitable. This is interesting, but where's the audience? How do you scale? It is almost inconceivable that the conversation did not turn to Clark, not as a guarantee, perhaps, but as a tantalizing what if. a potentiality so powerful it could color every financial projection. The entire business case for Unrivaled was fraught with historical peril. The WNBA itself had spent decades grinding for consistent viewership and profitability. 3-on-3 basketball, despite its Olympic pedigree, had never gained a sustained mainstream American audience. There was no
has had it that, right now, games are streamed on HBO Max. Well, if this sale happens, that may not be the case anymore. Unrivaled's going to lose that streaming option. Now, would it likely find another streaming option? Sure. But when you're in this much uncertainty, that's not a great look. Now, check this out. Unrivaled reportedly has a 6-year media rights deal that TNT can opt out of.
Existing fan base, no legacy franchises, no organic demand. The financial projections required a heroic leap of faith. That leap only makes sense if the architects were whispering, or implying, that they had a secret weapon, a gravitational force like Clark, who could pull an entire ecosystem into orbit around her. Caitlin Clark never played a game for Unrivaled. She never seriously entertained it. After her monumental final collegiate season and her #1 overall selection in the WNBA draft, she chose rest. Then, as Unrivaled launched its first season to modest but hopeful interest, Clark was in the WNBA, facing her own rookie adjustments. When the league inevitably came calling for Season 2, hoping to secure her participation, Clark announced she would undergo shoulder surgery, a procedure that would sideline her for the entire Unrivaled off-season window. The timing, to suspicious observers and likely furious investors, was either brutally coincidental or brilliantly strategic. From Clark's perspective, it was likely simple pragmatism. Prioritize long-term health for her WNBA career. From Unrivaled's perspective, it was a death knell. The single biggest draw in the history of women's basketball had effectively given their league a pass twice. This absence created a vacuum that the league's actual roster could not fill. The star power shifted to players like Paige Bueckers and Cameron Brink, immensely talented. But as the cold, hard ratings would prove, needle movers of a different, far smaller magnitude, the promotional load fell on them, and the audience response has been a deafening silence. As the commentary rightly points out, social media stan culture does not translate to live viewership.
For Brent, carrying the heavy load for Unrivaled as their biggest stars. Oh boy, that ain't going to get it done. That's not going to get it done. Paige Bueckers, we have a face. This proves all of us right. Paige Bueckers moving no needles, 0 needles. Her fan base can cancel that. You know what? Want to know one thing I can confidently say? Angel Reese moves more needles than.
You can have a battalion of online defenders, but if they won't click play on a free stream, the economic model collapses. This brings us to the devastating comparative analysis. Angel Reese, for all the polarized debate she inspires, demonstrably moves the needle more than Bueckers in terms of raw viewership. The analysis suggests that when Reese was active in Unrivaled's first season, she brought an additional 30,000 to 40,000 viewers, a marginal number in the grand sports landscape, but a lifeline for a nascent league. Her absence in Season 2 correlated directly with a portion of that audience vanishing. It's a stark lesson. In the economics of attention, not all fame is equal. Clark's appeal is generational. Reese's is culturally potent. Bueckers, while strong, exists in a different, less broadcast, responsive tier. Without Clark, and without a critical mass of the most culturally dominant players, Unrivaled was left trying to sell a product without its headline act. The foundational narrative of Unrivaled began cracking almost immediately. The league was sold on the idea that players were tired of flying to Europe and Asia. Yet, the moment a competing entity, Project B in the Middle East, emerged with serious guaranteed money, the exodus began. WNBA stars, including those who had championed the Unrivaled ideal, packed their bags for the lucrative overseas offers they were supposedly eager to abandon. This wasn't just a minor contradiction. It was a catastrophic failure of the core value proposition. It revealed that for players, the decision was never fundamentally about convenience or patriotism. It was, understandably, about economics.
So only 30 or 40 more thousand fans, but regardless, that was there last year, and now it's not. I think this is starting, and we talked about this league being doomed. And of course, this is all important because they've tried to use this league as leverage.
When presented with the highest bidder, the narrative of a domestic sanctuary collapsed. As Alyssa Thomas and Aaliyah Boston indirectly indicated, the problem was never going overseas. It was about being compensated fairly. Unrivaled, it turned out, could not outbid the global market. This exposed the league's leverage as a phantom and revealed that the players' commitment to the project was conditional, not ideological. The quantitative reality of Unrivaled's failure is where speculation ends and catastrophe begins. The commentary cites an awful announcing analysis that is so damning it feels surreal. Reruns of The Big Bang Theory on TBS are drawing 8 times the audience of a live Unrivaled game with full production and announcers. Let that statistic sink in. A syndicated sitcom, whose original episodes concluded years ago, airing repeats that viewers have likely seen multiple times.
That leverage is disintegrated. It's gone. In fact, I would venture to say WNBA ownership, NBA ownership are laughing right now. They're smirking. Adam Silver's smirking. They're smiling because they know no leg to stand on. And again, I have to wonder out loud, did investors get sold a bad bill of goods?
Is atomizing a live sporting event? This isn't a red flag. It is a screaming siren indicating a complete failure to connect with a broadcast audience. For TNT sports executives, these numbers aren't disappointing. They are professionally terrifying. They represent wasted production budgets, squandered broadcast slots, and a glaring stain on the network's sports portfolio. The commentary notes that viewership in Season 2 has fallen off a cliff. This suggests that any initial curiosity that accompanied the league's launch has completely evaporated. The novelty is gone, and what remains is a product that a vast majority of sports fans have rejected. When your live event can't compete with sitcom reruns, you have lost the battle for relevance. The perfect storm of corporate uncertainty. Compounding the ratings disaster is a maelstrom of corporate uncertainty at the highest level. Unrivaled's media partner, TNT Sports, is a property of Warner Bros. Discovery, WBD. WBD is currently embroiled in a high-stakes sale process, with giants like Netflix and Paramount circling. Everything is in flux. Unrivaled games currently stream on HBO Max as part of the TNT deal. If new ownership takes over, the entire streaming strategy could be scrapped overnight. The league could find itself homeless in the digital...
Honestly, tell me what you think. TNT can shoot up that deuce and say, peace, we're out.
...landscape, forced to beg for shelf space on a new platform with zero leverage and catastrophic ratings. This uncertainty is a poison for any business. But for a fledgling sports league clinging to survival, it is lethal. It hampers long-term planning, scares away potential ancillary sponsors, and sends a message of instability to everyone involved, from players to fans. Then there is the contractual trapdoor, the reported 6-year media rights deal with an opt-out clause for TNT after 3 years. In the world of television deals, this is the escape pod. It allows the network to commit publicly to a long-term partnership, while privately holding a get-out-of-jail-free card if the experiment fails. With ratings in freefall in year 2, what do you think TNT's accountants and programming executives are recommending? They are undoubtedly running models that show the continued drain on resources. They are looking at the opportunity cost of the broadcast time. The clause is no longer a minor detail. It is the central countdown clock on Unrivaled's future. Given the current trajectory, the decision at the 3-year mark seems a foregone conclusion. TNT will likely shoot up the deuce, as the commentary vividly states, and walk away. Without a major media partner, the league's financial model becomes untenable. The founders' own vote of no confidence? Perhaps the most symbolically devastating blow to Unrivaled's credibility came from within. Napheesa Collier, a league co-founder and one of its foundational faces, chose to undergo shoulder surgery, causing her to miss a significant portion of Unrivaled's own season. The optics are disastrous. The person who helped conceive this league, who sold the dream to investors and players, who is its most visible architect, prioritized a non-emergency medical procedure over participating in the league's critical second season. The message this sends is unmistakable. Even for its creators, Unrivaled is not a paramount priority. It ranks below personal health management that could potentially have been scheduled differently. If the co-founder isn't fully invested in playing, how can she ask other players, investors, or fans to be fully invested? It's a tacit admission that the project may not be worth the personal sacrifice, a revelation that undermines the entire enterprise at its core. This is where Unrivaled's failure ripples far beyond its own balance sheet. A secondary, and perhaps equally important, purpose of the league was to serve as leverage for the WNBA Players Association in collective bargaining negotiations. The theory was simple. If players had a viable, well-funded domestic alternative, they could push WNBA owners harder for better salaries and working conditions. The threat of players spending their offseason elsewhere was amplified by the prospect of them doing it here, building a competing brand. That leverage has now not just diminished, it has disintegrated. As the commentary notes, WNBA and NBA owners, including Commissioner Adam Silver, are likely smirking. Unrivaled's inability to draw an audience or create a stable economic model proves the opposite of its intended point. It demonstrates that there is no credible, large-scale domestic alternative to the WNBA. The players' bargaining position is arguably weaker now. They tried to build their own table, and it collapsed. The owners now hold all the cards, knowing the overseas market, while lucrative, is not a platform for domestic brand building, and the Unrivaled experiment has failed to provide one. We return then to the haunting original question. Did investors like TNT Sports and the individual backers who wrote substantial checks get sold a bill of goods? The illogical investment. Smart money does not pour into a sports league with no history, an unproven format, and a struggling broader market without a compelling transformative hypothesis. That hypothesis was almost certainly the involvement of a transcendent talent, the Clark-shaped void. Her absence is the defining feature of the league. Every failure is magnified by the question, what if Clark had played? The speed of the collapse. The rapid erosion of viewership and narrative suggests the initial interest was built on a premise that failed to materialize, a premise likely tied to star power that never arrived. While we may never see a signed document promising Clark's participation, the atmosphere of the pitch, the projections shown, and the whispers in the room almost certainly revolved around her potential. Investors may have bet on the possibility, and that possibility never came to pass. In that sense, yes, they were sold a vision that was contingent on a reality that did not unfold. What happens now? The path seems tragically clear. Unrivaled will limp through its current season, a spectacle of ambition meeting indifference. Investors will begin quiet, desperate efforts to recoup whatever scraps they can, likely writing off their losses. TNT Sports will, barring a miraculous and unforeseen turnaround, exercise its opt-out clause, severing the league's media lifeline. The corporate sale of Warner Brothers Discovery will add another layer of chaos, likely leaving the league without a streaming home. And then, it will fold. It will become a case study in business schools and sports management programs. How not to launch a sports league. The lessons are painful but clear. You cannot build a league on a narrative that contradicts basic economic incentives. Players will always follow the money. You cannot base a business model on the participation of one individual who has not committed. Social media clout is not television viewership. Leverage must be real to be effective. A phantom alternative empowers your opposition. The founders must be the most fervent believers, sacrificing visibly for the cause. The greatest tragedy of Unrivaled's failure is the shadow it casts on the future of women's sports. It was a bold, well-funded, well-connected experiment that had every advantage a new league could dream of, and it failed spectacularly. This will make it exponentially harder for the next entrepreneur with a vision for a women's sports league to secure funding. Investors will point to Unrivaled and say, "See? It can't be done." The setback is not just financial, it's psychological, affecting the entire ecosystem. In the end, Unrivaled is not just a story about a basketball league. It is a story about hype in the modern age, about the dangerous space between a compelling story and a sustainable business, and about the immense, lonely weight placed on the shoulders of athletes like Caitlin Clark, who are expected not just to play the game, but to validate entire industries. The league was ultimately unrivaled in its ambition, but also, tragically, unrivaled in the speed and totality of its downfall. The final buzzer is sounding, and the arena, never really full, is now echoing and empty.